Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into a real-life mystery. It unfolded against the backdrop of one of Texas's most destructive natural disasters.
Yeah, we're looking at the tragic disappearance of Crystal McDowell.
Exactly, a story where the storm outside really seemed to mirror the tempest within, human relationships. You've given us a stack of fascinating sources here, detailing a really complex web of events, motives, and a very intense investigation.
Right, and our mission for this deep dive, as always, is to pull out those critical nuggets of insight from these sources. We're not just recounting facts.
No.
We want to unravel the complexities of human behavior, the huge challenges law enforcement faced in these extraordinary circumstances,
Yeah.
and the profound ripple effects of, well, a single terrible act.
Yeah.
You should prepare for a journey that might make you rethink what you think you know about, say, a friendly divorce and the masks people wear.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting with Crystal herself. Our sources paint a really varied picture, don't they?
They really do.
Someone with a great spirit who knew what she wanted, just radiated light.
Mm-hmm. And obviously very beautiful, very attractive, but also, like, down to earth. A self-proclaimed goofball, even a dork.
Right. Had that gypsy soul, loved traveling. She was a flight attendant for 10 years.
And a real estate agent, too. Very social.
And crucially, deeply responsible, especially, it seems, when it came to her kids. So why is understanding her personality like that? Why is that such a critical starting point for investigators?
Well, that's a great question, and it's really foundational in any missing persons investigation. Crystal's vibrant personality, her established reputation as this devoted, highly responsible mother, it immediately throws up huge red flags when she disappears.
Right. Doesn't fit.
Exactly. This isn't just about, her nice qualities. It's a key indicator for the authorities. A sudden, completely out-of-character disappearance by someone so rooted in her community, so dedicated to her children, it often points away from her just leaving voluntarily.
And towards foul play.
Very quickly towards foul play.
Yeah.
Her uncle, Jeff Walters, he put it plainly, she's one of the most responsible people that I know. She never loses contact with us.
Yeah.
And Sheriff Hawthorne echoed that. He was unequivocal. Mothers don't leave their children. So her established character, it became an early, crucial piece of evidence that just fundamentally clashed with the idea she'd simply walk away.
And then there's the timing. It's just chilling, isn't it?
Utterly.
Friday morning, August 25, 2017. Tropical storm Harvey is just offshore, expected to strengthen into this catastrophic hurricane, aiming right for Texas.
Right when she leaves her new boyfriend, Paul Hargrave's house.
Precisely. Chaos was literally brewing. A huge, formidable backdrop to this unfolding personal tragedy.
What's striking to you here about just the sheer scale of the challenges for investigators, with this literal storm mirroring the human one?
Well, what's truly extraordinary is that convergence of events. The sources call it the perfect storm, and it's hard to argue.
Yeah. The reports make it clear there's obviously never a good time for anybody to become missing. But the timing was terrible.
Understatement.
Right. Authorities were immediately hampered by some of the flood issues. Emergency services were stretched to the absolute limit.
I can only imagine.
Yet their determination was pretty remarkable. District Attorney Cheryl League noted, "We had deputies that were flooded out of their homes. One of our investigators lost his entire house."
Whoa.
And yet, they showed up for work. Everybody all day looking for this woman. It really highlights this incredible dedication you see from first responders. Their duty often just transcends personal catastrophe.
That's powerful.
And, in a strange twist, the storm itself became both a massive hindrance initially, but also, surprisingly, a kind of strange helper later on. It delayed potential evidence tampering, maybe inadvertently preserved crucial scenes because nobody could get to them easily.
Huh. Okay, so Crystal's missing, a hurricane's bearing down. Investigators have their hands full. Sheriff Hawthorne quickly zeroed in on 3 key men in her life.
The standard approach.
Her ex-husband, Steve McDowell, the new boyfriend, Paul Hargrave, and her uncle, Jeff Walters, who, as the source said, was making such noise about everything.
Right.
So in a chaotic situation like that, how do investigators typically prioritize these initial persons of interest? And what challenges did this tangled web present right off the bat?
Well, that initial focus is classic procedure. Like I said, it's driven by proximity and relationship. You look at those closest first.
Makes sense.
What's fascinating here, though, is how each of these men presented such a distinct narrative, almost like a different mask, for investigators to try and peel back.
Okay, walk us through them. Uncle Jeff first.
Yeah, Uncle Jeff. Clearly distraught. He's the one who reported her missing. But his emotional involvement actually became a complication.
How?
The sources say he kept getting in the way of the investigation. He went through Crystal's townhouse with other family members.
Oh, no.
Potentially tainting important evidence. Disturbing a potential crime scene.
Right, even with good intentions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He even hired what the sheriff called a super sleuth wannabe private investigator. It led the sheriff to say pretty firmly, this is not a game to us. It's a vital insight for any listener, really.
Right.
Wanting to help is understandable, but family can inadvertently hinder things by touching evidence, no matter how well-meaning.
Okay, so Jeff was causing some issues. Then there's the boyfriend, Paul Hargrave.
Right, Paul. Crystal had only been dating him for a few weeks, but the connection seemed really strong. She just posted on Facebook, "I've never been happier my whole life than I am right now."
Wow, just days before.
Yeah, and he was the last known person to see her alive. So naturally, he's a person of interest. But the suspicion wasn't initially about him harming her.
What was it then?
It was because he failed to share crucial security footage from his home with the authorities right away. Instead, he apparently gave it to the media first.
Really? Why would he do that?
Well, the sheriff questioned it too. Why would he be turning it over to the media, but yet my investigators don't have that? That delay, even if it wasn't malicious, it creates suspicion. It diverts resources.
I see. Okay, and finally the ex-husband, Steve McDowell.
Steve, married for 10 years, 2 kids together. Now, despite what many called an amicable divorce, just a couple months earlier, in June 2017.
Things weren't quite separate yet.
Not physically. Crystal was still living in the master bedroom of their shared home, with Steve upstairs, while her own townhouse was being renovated.
Okay, that's complex.
Very. Steve's initial story was that Crystal texted him around 7 a.m. saying, "On my way.
Yeah.
Looks like I may stay here with the kids." Then supposedly another text around 9:30 a.m. he apparently only showed to Jeff, saying she'd pick up the kids and go to Dallas.
Did that sound right to people who knew her?
No. Family members quickly said those texts just didn't sound like her. Steve was cooperative in interviews, initially. But then he failed a polygraph test.
Right, you mentioned that. Not admissible in court, but...
But it definitely raised eyebrows for investigators. It was a crucial signpost, really, telling them their focus on Steve needed to get much deeper.
And it was that deeper dive, wasn't it, that really started to unmask this whole amicable divorce narrative around Steve McDowell. It revealed something much darker.
Oh, absolutely. DA Cheryl League stated it quite plainly. He didn't want the divorce. He'd always been distraught every time she tried to leave him.
That paints a very different picture, far more sinister than amicable.
Indeed. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, the sources reveal this pattern of behavior that was anything but amicable. Crystal's aunt, Cindy C. Wright, describes Steve's love as almost unhealthy.
Unhealthy how?
An obsessive, controlling love. She added that Crystal wore the pants in the family, while Steve apparently didn't challenge her openly, perhaps festering resentment. And L.J. Adams, a good friend, called Steve a very, very self-centered, selfish, manipulative person who'd throw temper tantrums if he didn't get his way.
So this wasn't sudden, it was a history.
Exactly. A history of control and manipulation. It's a key insight here, recognizing the signs of what experts call coercive control. It's a pattern that goes beyond physical violence. It's emotional, psychological domination.
And there were examples from earlier.
Yeah, going way back to 2008.
Yeah.
Just a year after they married. Crystal filed for divorce then, but didn't go through with it. Why? Because Steve had made threats.
What kind of threat?
Specifically threatening to kill myself, which the sources flag as classic emotional blackmail. Using fear or guilt to control someone's actions.
Horrible.
And this pattern escalated significantly. March 2017, shortly after Crystal officially filed for divorce again, she called 911. Steve had disappeared with their children for a few days.
Oh, my God.
Allegedly threatening to harm himself and Crystal and the kids. Even his older daughter, Krista, noticed his strange Facebook profile picture changes around that time.
What kind of changes?
From a grave to a grim reaper. Then a picture of him with Crystal. Then no profile picture.
Yeah.
All within just a few days.
Wow. Like a digital breadcrumb trail of his state of mind.
Exactly. Subtle, maybe, but alarming signals. Hints that things were far from amicable, pointing to deep internal turmoil and possessiveness.
And the sources seem to pinpoint a specific catalyst for what they call Steve's final unraveling, a series of events right before she disappeared.
Right. It came to a head.
Yeah.
Crystal had moved on with Paul. She posted about her happiness online on August 23rd, just 2 days before she vanished.
Okay.
She'd also invited Paul on a family cruise that Steve was planning to attend. And then, crucially,
She disinvited Steve.
she disinvited Steve from that cruise.
Oof. That sounds like a cascade of devastating blows for someone with his apparent mindset. That obsessive control. What was the cumulative impact?
Well, what's fascinating, or maybe terrifying, is how these seemingly small acts became monumental in the context of Steve's possessive nature. They stripped away the last bits of his self-delusion. Crystal's aunt, Cindy, revealed answer. Crystal actually told her, "Aunt Cindy, I have to keep this quiet. He will kill me if Steve found out about Paul."
Chilling. She knew the danger.
She absolutely did. It speaks volumes about her understanding of his potential for violence, the fear she lived with. Meanwhile, Steve was reportedly planning to propose to Crystal again on that same cruise.
Despite being divorced.
Despite being divorced,
Yeah.
her aunt called it a fantasy in his head. It just reveals this deep, dangerous disconnect from reality. A refusal to accept the divorce or Crystal's autonomy.
And there was more, wasn't there? Something about money?
Yes. On top of that emotional blow, Crystal had recently decided to cut Steve off financially. Apparently, he was just spending money just ridiculously.
So everything was slipping away from him.
Everything. As DA League powerfully put it, he was losing his whole life.
Yeah.
His whole lifestyle. That's the ultimate insight into his motive, really. He was losing control over Crystal, over his fantasy relationship, over his financial comfort.
The confluence of those factors, the emotional rejection, her public happiness with someone else, the financial cutoff.
It created that perfect storm within Steve, mirroring the hurricane outside. It just dismantled his entire perceived world.
So investigators were initially stalled. The DA had apparently lost hope, saying, "I know she's dead."
Yeah, noting no activity on any of her credit cards, debit cards, nothing. Pointing out, nobody leaves anymore without a cell phone, which hadn't been used.
But then the crucial break, her black Mercedes, spotted by a friend in a Motel 6 parking lot.
Right. And the way it was found was key. Unlocked, keys on the console.
Which screamed staged.
Exactly. Staged, set up for someone to take it.
But Hurricane Harvey's floodwaters meant they couldn't immediately process it. What's the significance of that staged car, and how did surveillance become this silent, crucial witness?
Well, finding the car was absolutely the turning point, because it was staged. An unlocked car, keys just sitting there. That's not typical abandonment. It's an attempt to mislead.
Signals foul play, and to cover it up.
Precisely. And this is where modern surveillance tech proved absolutely critical, almost a silver lining from the storm's delay, like we talked about, which might have prevented immediate evidence destruction.
So what did the camera show?
Investigators meticulously pieced it together. Footage from a Shell gas station next to Motel 6. It showed Steve McDowell getting out of a car.
His car or hers?
Looked like a car, maybe not hers initially, but he was stuffing what looked like clothing into a trash can and repeatedly glancing over at the Motel 6, checking if Crystal's car was still there.
Okay, that's suspicious.
Then other footage from the Motel 6 parking lot itself showed someone that resembles her ex-husband getting out of Crystal's Mercedes after parking it.
Placed him right there.
Directly at the scene of the car abandonment. And then the final piece, almost comical if it weren't so grim.
The bicycle.
The bicycle from Walmart. Footage showed Steve buying a bike, riding it out onto the Interstate 10 service road. That answered how he got home after ditching her car miles away.
Incredible, just step-by-step tracking.
Sheriff Hawthorne called that surveillance footage, unequivocally, the turning point. It eliminated any real doubt about Steve's involvement. It completely cleared Paul and Jeff.
Wow.
It just demonstrates how, even in the chaos of a natural disaster, technology can provide this undeniable sequential evidence. It builds an irrefutable narrative.
Okay, so they have this mounting circumstantial evidence, but Steve McDowell remained, arrogant and aloof.
Yeah, gaming us, according to DA League.
So investigators needed more. They needed a confession, and crucially, they needed to find Crystal's body.
Right.
So they began applying this immense psychological pressure, bringing him in for daily interviews. That strategy, it sounds incredibly potent, but also maybe ethically complex. What did the sources say about the internal debate or the emotional toll this final straw tactic took?
That's a vital point. The sources reveal the huge internal conflict and the high stakes involved in that chess match, as they called it. The team knew they couldn't wait.
Why the urgency?
Sheriff Hawthorne was deeply concerned. He was thinking, he's going to kill those kids. It wasn't just about solving a crime anymore. It was about protecting vulnerable lives right now.
God, the pressure.
Immense. So The final straw, a decision they didn't take lightly, came when DA League arranged for Child Protective Services to remove the children from Steve's home.
And place them with Aunt Cindy.
Right, with their Aunt Cindy.
Yeah.
And the DA says this decision was made knowing psychologically that that would be the final straw for him, his kids being gone.
Using his only remaining emotional anchor against him.
Essentially, yes. And the raw emotion of that moment is palpable in the sources. Both kids came out and apparently gave every one of us bear hugs. The sheriff reflects on the totality and the impact that family violence has on children.
It must have been wrenching for everyone involved.
Clearly a wrenching choice. A calculated risk leveraging his connection to his kids. And then, in this really bold, maybe risky move, the sheriff allowed Steve to go home.
After taking the kids.
Yes. Told him to get your affairs in order, promising he'd return to talk. A crime reporter noted, "I have never heard of a department saying go home and get your affairs in order."
That's unorthodox.
Deeply unorthodox. A deeply psychological gambit, born out of necessity and, seemingly, a deep understanding of Steve's psyche.
Yeah.
Designed purely to push him to the breaking point. It really speaks to that ethical tightrope law enforcement sometimes walks in these high-stakes cases.
And it worked.
It worked. True to his word, Steve returned. And he finally confessed.
What did he say happened?
He detailed how Crystal came home after being with Paul. They got into an argument, and he strangled her from behind in a chokehold.
Oh, God.
He then put her body in the car, disposed of it early the next morning, leaving their 2 young children home alone while he did it.
Unbelievable.
And he led investigators to her body, a densely wooded area off an access road not far from his house.
How critical was that confession, not just legally, but for finding her?
Absolutely critical. For the legal process, yes, but also for the family. Just offering that first real glimmer of closure, of knowing where she was. As the sheriff himself pondered, if he had not told you exactly where the body was, would she have ever been found?
Right. In that huge, storm-ravaged area.
It's a stark reminder it could have been impossible without that direct lead.
So what happened at the trial?
At the trial, in June 2019, Steve McDowell tried the sudden passion defense. He testified her death was a spontaneous hug that got out of control.
A hug. Seriously.
That was his claim. It's a legal strategy to try and reduce a murder charge, arguing it was a moment of intense, uncontrolled emotion, not premeditation.
But the prosecution argued otherwise.
Vigorously. DA League argued it was absolutely premeditated. A decision born from that deep possessiveness. If I can't have her, nobody can.
And they used the history, the threats.
Exactly. They presented the history of control, the Facebook messages, the financial cutoff, the cruise disinvitation, all as clear evidence of a pattern that culminated in a planned act, not a spontaneous one.
And the jury?
After 5 days of testimony, the jury took only 3.5 hours.
That's fast.
Very fast. Delivered a guilty verdict. Steve McDowell was sentenced to 50 years in prison. He'll be eligible for parole in 2042.
So the verdict affirmed the prosecution's view. It wasn't a momentary lapse.
No, it was seen as the culmination of that destructive, controlling mindset.
Which brings us back, sadly, to the other victims.
Yeah.
The children. Madden, 8, and Maui, 5.
Yeah.
Aunt Cindy had the heartbreaking task of telling them, "We've found your mommy, she's in heaven, and your daddy's in jail for taking your mother's life."
Just gut-wrenching to even read.
And that image of Madden, just an 8-year-old boy hugging his little sister and saying, "I can deal with this, promising I'll always take care of you." It's just incredibly poignant and devastating.
It truly is. And it just lays bare the profound ripple effect of family violence, doesn't it? What the sources really emphasize here isn't just the immediate tragedy, but those long-term, often invisible scars left on children.
The resilience is amazing, but...
It is remarkable, like Madden's declaration. But the burden they carry is immense. Their older half-sister, Krista, also promised to be there for them, recognizing, as she put it, they have no one else in that immediate family unit now. This case is just such a stark reminder that the impact of domestic violence, of possessive control, it extends so far beyond the direct victims. It shatters families. It leaves this lasting legacy of trauma for generations. The true cost of Steve McDowell's actions, well, it'll be borne by those children for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, this deep dive into Crystal McDowell's story, it really reveals how quickly a life can change, how deep secrets can run, and how those forces of human emotion, especially that unchecked possessiveness, that need for control, can be just as destructive as any hurricane.
Absolutely.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it, that what looks like an amicable split on the surface can often mask this simmering resentment, this dangerous, deeply ingrained desire for absolute power over someone else's life.
Which really raises an important question for you, our listener. In a world where personal boundaries are constantly tested, where information and maybe misinformation is everywhere, how can we get better at identifying those subtle signs?
Or sometimes not so subtle signs.
Right. Signs of escalating control, manipulation, emotional blackmail within relationships. What role do we, as friends, as family, as community members, play in recognizing these patterns and maybe supporting individuals who might be trapped in situations that look stable on the outside but are toxic inside before it's too late?
Something definitely worth reflecting on. We hope this deep dive into the disappearance of Crystal McDowell has given you some new insights and perhaps, a fresh perspective on the complex, often hidden realities of human relationships.